kid.
They become the embodiment of
not born of man or woman, so made. So the concept of the outsider in this book, and I needed it. In every novel, you're going to have someone who is going to be the other, or someone who can be victimized, and I came up with this young girl.
Yeah. But now the story has two plot lines. It's not just that story. That's the backstory in a way, and you also have a detective in this book who's trying to figure out the first murder, which opens the book.
First paragraph.
First line.
Yeah.
Remember, we teach a course called First Line, First Paragraph, First Page. The first line is, "The dead woman was suspended by the neck from a rope tied to a low branch of a flaming sugar maple in her backyard." You read that first line, you'll read the next line, and the next line, and the next line. You know from the first line that you're in the presence of a real writer. Now, this is going to introduce our detective. And in that way, it's going to introduce an entirely new character in the Gary Braver, or we still call you Gary, gosh, Gary, in the Gary Braver canon, because Gary is is best known for his medical thrillers, which usually focus on a family, usually a disintegrating family, whereas this one begins with a kind of classic detective setup. What just made you decide that you wanted to do it in this way, even though there's a disintegrating family or two in this novel as well?
Right. I have had cops in two other books, The Stone Circle and Gray Matter, but I did not. I was told to write standalones, so there was no need or no charge to write a series of detectives, police procedural series. The last book I did with Tess Gerritsen, and it was remarkably successful because of my celebrity. And
well, now wait a minute. You got your picture in Times Square in the giant Amazon ad.
Yeah.
And he sends me an email. I have my picture in Times Square. I'll say, I never got my picture in Times Square.
That's because you were not published by Amazon.
That's right.
Which is a dirty word in bookstores these days. I mean, Amazon has bottomless vats of money with Jeff Bezos, shoveling it, and they put up the cover of the book in Times Square and Broadway for 3 weeks, entire side of a building. In any case.
And if you went down there, Gary would be standing in front of it, and if you took Gary's picture in front of that, he would then ask you for $10.
No, buy the book and I'll sign it.
Oh, okay.
And add stacks of, so the notion of writing a detective series, struck me because of the success of the last book of Choose Me with Tess Gerritsen, and Tess said, "Why don't you write your own detective series?" And I did. And the thing is, I guess this is a little like schoolroom, but the detective is much more important than detection. That is, the detective is going to be smart. He's not going to be a dummy. He or she is going to put together the clues and use deductive logic and nab the villain at the end. So I knew they're going to be smart. But when you're designing a detective, and those of you who are out there, Hank and Ray and others and Bill, when you're designing a detective, the protagonist has to be the person with the most to lose. That is, you have to give baggage to your cop. And so I decided I needed to have Kirk have baggage. And why? Because if your detective has a lot to lose and there is empathy for his or her baggage, then there is you want to see that character win, and you want to see them maybe in another book. So what I decided to do is have his and his wife Olivia's child get hit by a car a year and a half before and was killed by a hit-and-run driver and that will never be solved. That will be the open wound from book to book to book. And that sent him in such a deep depression that Kirk could not attend his wife Olivia's grief and loss because he was so dysfunctional. And some of the research I've done, and you probably all know this, that if there are that marriages usually break up if a child dies, and it's usually, I don't want to be in this anymore. It's too much of a reminder of our loss. I don't want to be living in the same house anymore, etc., etc. So I decided to have Kirk and Olivia split, and so they separate. They have been dating since college, and she now is going to date somebody else. I'm really answering the question about how I designed it, my detective. In any cop novel, in any novel, there usually are two quests. In a cop novel, who left the body of Sylvie Thornton in the opening scene? So as you go through the novel, the detective puts together the clues and nabs the bad guy at the end. But it's the personal quest, that which is, I've got to overcome the baggage I have that my author gave me. And many times the baggage can be a cop is hooked on drugs, a cop is alcoholic, or the detective is guilty because he or she's partner got killed in the last investigation, or estrangement from a loved one, a child, a partner. So Kirk starts off with estrangement and what he wants, his quest, personal, I want my marriage to come back. I want my wife to come back. I want this to work. So he's already booby-trapped with this, and she's now dating other men. Plus he's got to solve this woman who's hanging in the backyard and determine, first of all, that's not suicide, that's murder, and then who did it. So that's what I decided to do, and I gave him a partner who's a woman married to a woman, and she's in a profession that is traditionally straight males, and so that's her baggage. And so that's what I first did in designing this, and when I made the decision to write a series. I mean, I jumped in over one cent, but